conference corresponding to the film. It's a co-production between India, France, and the United Kingdom called Tigers, which is the latest film by the Bosnian director, Mr. Denis Tanovic, who is here with us today, along with two of the real protagonists of the story, Syed Aamir Raza and Diamond Emmanuel, as well as several of the producers, Sidomi Kolar, Andy Patterson, scriptwriter Prashita Chaudhary, who is also a producer.
The difficult thing with this story was that we were not allowed to make it. We set out to tell what we thought was a very important true story, and we discovered along the way that it was almost impossible to tell a true story because it dealt with an issue that large multinational corporations may not want told. And to begin with, we just, thanks to Prashita, we found somebody who was prepared to back the making of the film. But there are two stories in this film. There is the extraordinary story of these gentlemen and what they went through in Pakistan. But there is also the fact that when we tried to make the film, we were blocked from doing so. And we felt we had to tell that story as well, because I think it's really very serious that it's impossible to find backing for a story as simple as this. So we decided to put the filmmakers into it so that we could discuss this very point. That even, when Western financiers are scared of taking on a story which is true in every detail, in order to make it, we had to make sure that we could back up everything that happened. So that were it to come to court, which it never will because it would be stupid to try that, we could defend it completely. But even with every detail being true, and with lawyers knowing that it was true, financiers were too scared to make the film until this lady came along.
We never accepted that this film will never be done. And I must say that I kept it on my back for 8 years. And on a lucky moment when I went to India, I came back with co-producers on this film, which among others was also a Sikya film with Gunit Monga and Anurag Kashyap, which is a very famous, also independent director as well as producer. I came back with possibility to make this film plus another film, which is Lunchbox. So it was a happy moment for me in India. And why India? Because there was no way that we can co-produce it with Pakistan, as you can well imagine.
The things have been portrayed, most of it is as it happened. So it's not me doing the doctor, so it has to be an actor. I'm not a good actor. But that's the only, I would say, that the thing which is not there, that it's not me or it's not Aamir in person. These are actors. But whatever is in there, I'm sure it's, I would say, 95, 99% right. So that's true story, real true story.
Can I just add something that for those of us who spent many, many years making the film, Dr. Diamond I met and talked to 8 years ago, he's just seen the film for the first time. So the sense of relief from us that he would say it that way is very large. Thank you so much. What we were most keen to do with the film was to accept that it was indeed based on a true story. And I'm happy to say very closely based on a true story. So it is a story about a guy who worked for Nestle and a doctor who worked with him, but there were many other, and are many other multinational corporations doing very much the same thing. So we wanted the story to be more general, whilst at the same time alluding to the source. So it's more than just a Nestle story.
Yes, of course. I see today the fifth time, and every time when I see, I am unable to control myself, and everything in this film is true and accurate, and I think they use in 90 minutes whatever they can is the best, way to tell the story.
The good thing was that this NGO had good contacts with other people in the UK, in Malaysia, and in Canada, and so the word spread, and things actually went not only, they didn't stay in Pakistan, but went worldwide. People who supported us from the UK, some of them are actually here sitting with you. And so just to prove my point that whatever we say is right, and I would request Patty to please stand up. And in Pakistan, actually, people have not seen it yet. So when it comes out in the cinemas and people see, we are expecting at least some reaction. And the best reaction I expect is actually taking the positive message, the message which we wanted to convey, that definitely we should put the lives of children ahead of the profits.
Obviously, it took us 8 years to make this. Yeah, that's already, for me, it's the longest trip I ever made with a film. Trouble with making with this kind of story, actually there are many problems. First is that you have a real story. You have a real person, and you have to stay true as much as you can to that person. On the other side, you have all the issue. On the third side, you have a company, and there's a possibility that this, biggest multinational company in the world is going to sue you because you're, making this story, and because they can. So we had to verify each and every fact, from our side. Then in this case, it was BBC, even they sent their investigators. They had to re-verify, and they came back saying, yes, everything you said is true. We have proofs now, and we still couldn't make the film. So 8 years later, we thought, Andy and I, when we shot the film, we thought that it would be fair to include that, because I think it's crazy that we have all these public services whose mission is, in difference from the private companies, they're using public money, is to protect, this kind of issue and to talk about this kind of issue because they are difficult. And if you have them backing off, then what kind of world are we living in? So it was a complicated way to make the story, to put everything in, and at the same time to make it, the word is not entertaining, but to make it interesting. And in the end, our real message was, and is actually, that it's not only Nestle, they're all doing this. All the companies are doing the same thing, and that's the problem. It's not just Nestle. As they say, there were 13 international companies in Pakistan at that time who were doing the same thing. And you know what? If you feel pessimistic and depressive at the end of the film, that's because we do. Because this, when we first time went to Pakistan, India and I, we went to Pakistan, I really thought we were going to have an old story. And then we went to, and then we saw that, it's actually happening. Then, 7 years later, it was not even, it was a dry season, which is a big difference in those parts of the world. It was not even a monsoon season. Well, it was the same thing. The babies you've seen in the film are the babies that are actually in these, I never think it stopped, but it didn't. It's still happening. And even today, if you go to those hospitals, you'll see it. So I don't think these people even understand what they are doing, Because these corporations, they function like, everybody has a different kind of interest. The top management wants the profit, and then everybody else is doing whatever they can to make this profit happen. And I may be naive, but I believe that if we show them what's happening and if we start the debate, then, this kind of thing eventually will stop. I think we have power to stop these kind of companies by choice, You stop buying their products. There are many other products, many other companies that, and it's happening. I don't have solutions in my films. I just ask questions, and I think solution is up to all of us.
Add one sentence that one way of letting evil to prosper is that good people do nothing. And I'm pleased that good people have done something to stop the evil.
In the film, you see Senator Edward Kennedy asking those questions. And these people say, we don't have any responsibility. Well, you know what? I think that answer is why we all feel today that we have no brighter future. That's exactly why are we living in a society in which now everybody's afraid. Nobody feels that in 10 years we're going to live better than we live now. Everybody's afraid of, I don't know what. We started to live in a society of fear. I mean, soon 1984 is going to look like Happy Children book. I think power is in us. We have to take these people responsible. And it's not only with this company. It's happening all around. Too big to fail. And what happened? Well, they are doing it again. And we're going to have again a crisis. And until we learn, we're going to have to pay the bills.
I don't know whether I'm allowed to ask a question, but as the NGO, the international NGO that was behind this, it's very important, I think, that we don't get depressed by this film. I mean, it's incredibly, but we think about multinationals and transnationals and think about how we regulate them. This is what our organization does, is not trust them. You see the Ayan character taking the charter. This is how the multinationals work. They give you a charter, or they give you some very nice sounding PR document that was impossible for this man to do, given his job. So we have to get behind that and regulate these companies, not trust what they're saying, and literally tell our politicians and everything that they literally must regulate them properly and stop this type of practice. So thank you. And like in India they have a law that the formula sales are completely flat in India now, whereas they're up in Pakistan, unless you regulate.
People from the region, some Indians and Pakistanis saw the film and they said, like, we would never tell it was made by, somebody from outside. And that was my biggest fear, to make those little mistakes where that person is not from there, and that something in the film happens which would never happen in the society. So having a wealthy producers who allow me to do it, I had 5 people at any time just for cultural references, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's the fact, like somebody asked me why doesn't he kiss his wife at the end? I said because he would never do it on the street. It would happen maybe in Bosnia, it would happen, but in Pakistan it would never happen. He kisses the child, looks at her and leaves. This film really proves that it is not one-man show. It's 200 people working together, and I'm very grateful to them because they were very, very generous toward me, and I think they all understood the importance of this.
We all are doing our best to basically make it reach where it should reach, and after Toronto and today, I'm very, very confident, and I think all of us are very confident that it will. So, but for the past, yes, after knowing about what the basic story is and what we are trying to do here, I never had any question mark. I just straight away went ahead with it. That's it.
We had few Pakistani members of the crew who were in Pakistan shooting, so for whatever reason we needed, we went there. Andy brought this, I think we were in I don't know, even in Cannes Film Festival or something like this, we were together, and he said to me, I have a story for you. And I read it, and it was immediately a story for me. Why? I could give you hundreds of reasons why. Why? Because I'm father, and when I read this story, I believe somehow in order in the world. I'm very naive in many things, and I'm romantic in many ways. I love to believe that we're all gonna die one day, but my mom should die somehow before me, and and then I should die, and then my children. That's the way it should be. I think loss of a children is the worst thing that can happen to anybody. I have few friends who lost their children, and I just see that those people never came back. Something died in them, and I think this is good reason enough for anybody to go and try to do something about it. I can't even imagine, when I first saw this documentary, I couldn't speak for 2 hours. And believe me, I'm a tough guy, I've seen shit in my life. And when I saw this documentary of this woman looking at her baby, and this baby dies in this hospital, this shouldn't be happening. I think it's important. I like to believe that I've spent 8 years doing something that matters.
In 1997, when we start, we are only 4 people, my family and Dr. Diamond at that point, and that is finished in Germany. And after that, all the stress away from my family, My mother, she had a cancer and she passed away. And right after 3 months, my father had a heart attack and he passed away, unable to attend the funeral. I think that recovers all my stress, all my sadness, and whatever is happening in my life. I think this is whatever they've done, the producers, Shri Pratisha Chaudhary and Andy Patterson and Dennis Stanwyck. I think they bring whatever I have. Now I feel, much, much better. Before that, I am taking the pills of my high blood pressure. Now I am fine after this one. And I am really, feel something is a big difference in my life, which I started 17 years before. Best ever results I can get it, and I am very happy and I am very thankful to everybody to bring this movie in. Thank you.
I mean, I don't know if you can imagine how wonderful it is to feel that for Aamir and Dr. Diamond that we finally brought some justice to them after all these years. But the point of what we do is to use an astonishing story like this and to try and make it go viral, because what cinema is there for is to find a specific story of this kind and to connect emotionally to it. People like Patty and Mike and all the action groups have worked for decades. In Toronto, we met the woman who started the Nestlé boycott back in the 70s. The documentary that we feature some of in the film is one of the most powerful things I've ever seen, and yet they go ignored. And the power of cinema is to engage emotionally with these characters and to send that message out to the world in a different way, so that that process of going viral starts right here. And I hope that you'll write about it. I hope that you will start to shout that message, not just that this happened, but that you're not allowed anymore to tell stories against multinational corporations because they can stop us. They stopped the BBC from telling this story. I find that deeply shocking. And what this film does is to say, all right, we will tell it. There are people around who will have the courage to do that, but you are all part of that story and you have to go and shout it. Otherwise, it will continue. 40, 50 years this has been going on, and people say, oh, it's an old story. It's not an old story. The lines in the movie are those lines. It repeats itself, and we are no longer allowed to stop it. Well, this film needs to try and change that. So please help us go viral with this.
Without India and without completely private involvement of Prashita, which is sitting here with us, again, it wouldn't be possible. And I mean, the courage of putting the total amount of the cost of the film from one person is really extremely important.
What I would like to say is precisely that. Thank you very much for the courage that you've demonstrated, Not only were you courageous when you denunciated this or reported this, but after the years you've continued with your story, and you've continued that you wanted to put it on screen, and very few people is able to do that and to be that courageous and to not get stuck along the byway. I wouldn't have been able to do that myself. Thank you very much.
I think every experience changes us. We're never the same. I'm not the same person who started this film 8 years ago. Maybe thank God. If I made it 8 years ago, I wouldn't understand all the things that I understand now, because 8 years is a long, long time to do. And gave me time to think and to rethink and to understand and to revisit. And it's not the same time when you write a screenplay and then 4 years later, you come back to it, you read it, and you read it as a foreign body. It doesn't belong to you anymore, because 4 years is a long time. And then you read it again 8 years later, and it helps you out. I mean, I didn't know much about Pakistan and India before I started this. Now, I've lived in India for almost 2 years, thanks to this film. So, and when you're living with people, it's not as being as a tourist, because you live there, you work there, you get to know them, you get to know their culture, you start to understand things you would never understand.
And we also have to thank San Sebastián, because out of 6 films that Danis did, 4 were shown here, including this one, which is in competition. So this is a very, very nice place for us to come back every year.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations.
Good.